For years, I had a Hot Rod arcade joystick connected to my desktop PC. While I loved the authenticity of it, I knew that someday I'd get a full-size arcade cabinet. I started combing through Craigslist and online boards, but finally ended up getting this, my Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 conversion cabinet, at an arcade auction. It's a dynamo conversion cabinet with a 25-inch monitor and various Mortal Kombat graphics and overlays, as well as a nice marquee. After a tune-up and a few repairs, I kept it as a dedicated Ultimate MK3 for 6 months or so. I always intended to convert my first arcade cabinet to a multi-cade, and this cabinet made for a great specimen. It's got a great button layout and plenty of buttons for 2 players. It's got a nice bright screen and everything works well on it. While I originally planned to build a main PC, I happened across an interesting multi-cade board on Craigslist. It's a 1066-in-1 multi-cade from parts unknown in China. It's actually a full PC with the JAMA harness built directly into the 2-story motherboard. It originally came with a 1.7 GHz Celeron processor, but I found that it was unable to run Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 at full speed. This was essential for any conversion that I was going to do on this machine. It had to be able to run its titled game as accurately as possible. So I figured out, with the help of a small online community of people that had this same board, how to upgrade the CPU to a 2.8 GHz Pentium 4. Now it can run Ultimate MK3 and many other newer games at full speed with no drop frames. I was also able to add a trackball. For now I'm using a standard mouse-type trackball plugged into a USB port on the board itself. It may not look that great, but it feels pretty close to the real thing and can be conveniently stored away in the cabinet when not in use. The game selection on this multi-cade is, well, interesting. It's not bad at all. It's actually really good. It's got just about all of the expected classics. It has a few selections that betray its Chinese roots. There are occasional repeats, but usually just a couple of different regions, like an Asian version versus a North American version. But for the most part, it's a really good list. I also figured out how to add games to the list, and I've added about 35 essential games. You can see that the full list is 1,098 games long now. After upgrading the guts, I had to turn my attention to the crackling, aging mono speaker. I pulled the old speaker out and replaced it with a Logitech 2.1 speaker system. So yes, the cabinet does have a subwoofer in it, and yes, it does rock, or thump. The big cabinet makes for a great sub-enclosure and really makes the smaller subwoofer sound more powerful than it is. I hope you'll join me as I work my way through the games on this machine in a series I'm calling the Arcade Chronicles. Some of the games I've never played before, some I've been playing since I was barely tall enough to reach the controls, but there's one consistent thread that runs through all of the games. I love arcade games. I've been drawn to arcades nearly my entire life, going back to playing Space Invaders at the roller rink in elementary school. I'll give you my thoughts and maybe a few memories about each game. I hope you'll join me.